Something strange is going on as the New York Rangers are off to a hot start to the season. Some of their best players are not, and Peter Laviolette called out some of these players and had some shocking comments as to why they might be off to a slow start. We're going to break all that down in this episode of Rangers Digest, but before we do, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 70% of you who watch our videos are not actually subscribed to the channel, so if you want to do yourself a favor, it's free. Hit that subscribe button and you get to stay up to date with everything New York Rangers. And that's right, the New York Rangers are off to a hot start to the season, but some players are nowhere to be found. And I've been seeing the comments, a lot of you calling out Kreider Miller, a lot of you calling out Mika Zibanejad. We're going to talk about them in this video. And let's start with Mika Zibanejad, right? Where is Mika Zibanejad this season? We are looking for him on the power play. Cannot be found. 5-on-5. We've looked at the charts the last couple videos. Cannot be found. And if we take a look at his stats so far this season, yes, he is just under a point a game player. He has 7 points in 9 games, but he is a -3, which, you know, I don't put too much into plus minus, but just from the eye test alone as well, you can tell, you know, he hasn't been too good defensively. He hasn't been too responsible defensively, and you have to be as a center. His 5-on-5 play hasn't been good, and neither has his line for that matter at 5-on-5. And on the power play, he looks a bit stale. A lot of people are complaining. He needs to pick up his game. He's the type of guy that you need to be at least a point a game player there on your second line center, because again, his line has been quote unquote demoted to the second line. So yes, again, you know, 7 points in 9 games, but you'd hope that he'd be at least a point a game player right now, or even better than that. So I ask once again, and I think most Rangers fans are asking right now, where is the real Mika Zibanejad at this point in time? But pretty interesting stuff to start the season for Mika Zibanejad. It hasn't been a great start, and they need to get the power play going as well. And another loss here, interesting one, to the Washington Capitals. And Washington's off to a pretty hot start themselves, but you would hope that you'd win that game, especially with Matt Rempe back in the lineup. We'll get to him in a second, or later in the video, I should say. But you'd hope that you'd win that game and you would take control of that game, and that's not what happened last night. Pretty interesting stuff. But this is from John, and we're going to get into fan reaction. We're going to get into some quotes from the coach himself, Peter Laviolette. But this is from John. Bench Mika Zibanejad and Kreider Miller. Take Mika off the power play. Start sending a message to players who play complacent hockey. You don't want to move your feet and skate. You don't want to show up to play. You're going to sit on the bench. You got to hold them accountable. And I think it starts now early in the season. I think you do have to hold some of these players accountable. And Mika hasn't been very good. He hasn't been showing what he can do on the power play. He hasn't been himself. And I am wondering, you know, that goes back to the last playoffs. He really wasn't himself, especially in that final series. I was wondering if there was maybe an injury at hand or something. And we talked about it on the channel back then, and there was no injury. There was no talk of injury. So very interesting stuff. And that's kind of crept into this season, and it's not looking good. They probably have to nip that in the bud sooner rather than later. We'll shift gears to Kreider Miller now, and I've seen a lot of it in the comments. A lot of people want Kreider Miller, first of all, traded, which I think is a bit ridiculous because he does have incredible use. He is a good defenseman. He just has to find his game, and he doesn't have it right now. Kreider Miller is really talented and really good at a lot of things, but turnovers are something that cannot be overlooked and something that needs to be desperately cut down. I wouldn't even argue cut down. I would say eliminated. He needs to really work on that part of his game. I mean, last night, bad giveaway in the defensive zone here off the wall. And when you're playing with a guy like Adam Fox, you know that he's going to maybe not leave the zone early every time, but he wants to jump in the rush. You know who you're playing with, so you have to have that awareness, right? You have to know who you're playing with and that he might be jumping up quick, and he wants to get that puck up the ice quickly, so you have to make sure you clear that puck. And he was caught a couple times last night, so he really has to clean that up. And in terms of quotes from Laviolette, in terms of the entire defensive play from the Rangers, and I don't know if he's just necessarily talking about the defense, the three pairings, or team defense, but he goes on to say tonight, definitely not. We needed to defend much better than what we did, with much more attitude than what we did. And I like that he said that. I think Peter Laviolette is a good coach, and he's had some success in his career for sure. And I like what he says here, with more attitude. You need to play heavier, right? I think that's what it is. You need to play heavier and meaner. And I feel like they just let Washington do whatever they wanted at times last night. And that is not a recipe for success. And yes, they're off to a hot start, but when you see efforts like this, it's a little disheartening at times, especially from players that are supposed to be your best defenseman. And I'm a real big fan of K'Andre Miller, and I think he's going to be a really good defenseman in this league. Even though, he is starting to get a little bit older, he is, reaching his prime at this point, I guess. But, I think that there's a lot of potential there. He's just got to clean up some of this stuff. And when asked about the Miller-Fox pair, which I know a lot of fans and have been seeing the comments are not a fan of at all, but Laviolette kept it short and didn't try to sugarcoat it. And he said, I thought it was off the mark. So there could be some movement here. We saw that there was movement throughout the defensive pairings the other day. There could be some more movement coming here for Peter Laviolette before their next game. So I thought that was very interesting. And again, just a horrendous turnover, just too many turnovers in general. I think they really have to work on that. And we'll shift gears again to some things I did like and some positive things. And in talking about positives, I will say that, to go back to Zibanejad, I think he's a very good player. I think he's going to find it. But right now, there needs to be something to kickstart him, either, a benching or something to get him going. And same with K'Andre Miller. I mean, a message needs to be sent. But nonetheless, some positives. I love Will Cooley's game. Nice hit again. I'm very impressed with his physicality, his speed. I've said it time and time again. He's perfect for that third line. And I was really, really impressed with him once again tonight. Mancini, been so impressed with him all season long. Let me know in the comments too what you think of Victor Mancini and of course Will Cooley, that third line. I'll get to some advanced analytics in a second on the third line and how they continue to dominate when they're on the ice, which is super impressive. But Victor Mancini throwing the bod here on Tom Wilson, right? Not somebody you would expect him to knock over, but knocks him over. And he's been very good. A revelation again for the New York Rangers this year. So love Victor Mancini's game. And in terms of advanced analytics from the third line, like I mentioned, the Rangers, Cooley, Hedl, Kako line has outscored opponents 9-0 at 5-on-5 this season. Here are their point totals through 8+ games. Cooley has 3 goals, 8 points. He's a +10. Hedl has 3 goals, 6 points. He's also a +10. Kaapo Kakko, you would like a little bit more out of him, but he is putting up the points, and you can't complain because he's playing on a very productive line. He has 1 goal this season, 7 points, and he is a +8. And when they've been on the ice together as a line, they haven't been scored against. So playing very good 5-on-5 hockey, and lots to like from that third line. I wouldn't break it up. Continue to do what you're doing. And I think they're going to, at some point they might end up, not being as good as they are to start the season, right? And then maybe you look at a lineup change there. But until that happens, until they falter, keep them together, especially 5-on-5. They've been playing brilliant hockey, and love to see that from the New York Rangers. The last thing I'll mention is the rematch here from the AHL. Rempe did get into a fight in his first game back up from the AHL. I would expect him to be sent back down to the AHL just to get games in. I think they're going to shake up the lineup a little bit, and they have extra players here, so they're going to continue to do that all year long. But I think Rempe hasn't been sent down yet. I'm not getting ahead of myself here, but we're going to see Rempe a lot in the NHL this year for sure, and he serves a purpose. And I like the fact that, aside from the fighting thing, I love that he was working on his game this summer with Chris Kreider's offensive side of the game. And obviously, the fighting, we knew he was working on that. But I love that he's trying to become a more responsible player in all 3 zones of the ice. So love that from Matt Rempe. But those are some positives. But again, got to clean it up. Some of these players got to clean up some of their play. And I think the Rangers will be fine. But let me know in the comments what you think of Mika's play so far this season, what you think of K'Andre Miller's play so far this season. Obviously, much to like from Victor Mancini. That third line has been fantastic this year. Let me know what you think is the best part of that third line. And I'm curious too. Let me know what you think about Kaapo Kakko's play so far this year. I think he's been good. He's been serving a purpose, but I think a lot of people want him to take a bigger step and play higher up in the lineup and score a little bit more. So let me know what you think in the comments about that. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.